guys, how's it going? Welcome back. So, welcome to why do you need to trim out your quadcopter and what does it actually do to the quadcopter when you're trimming it? Okay, so you take off and you try and get into a hover. You notice you got some drift going on, right? Could be forward drift, side drift, could be forward and side. Either way, you're going to have some drifting going on. You got to straighten it out, okay? And you've got some trim controls on your radio. The one down on the bottom on the right here, if you push it to the right, it makes the quadcopter go to the right. Push it to the left, goes to the left. A little bit of common sense stuff here. Alright, forward or up makes the thing go forward. Pushing the switch back starts to bring it backward. Now it may take a couple of clicks in order to achieve this on each control, but that's what it's going to do. Now your left control under here at the bottom, okay, this one here is going to control your yaw or spin. Okay, so yaw is like turning left, turning right type of thing, and just spinning, right? Now, it's important to trim out your quad so that it can hover as stable as possible. Now, no quad, I don't care how expensive it is, will ever hover precisely perfect. It's just not able to be done in reality, okay? Some people would try and argue this point, but I'm sorry, that's the way it is. It cannot be done. Now, what does the trim controls actually do when you activate them on the quad? Well, what it does is it changes motor speed, either up or down, depending on which way you need to go. Now, initially, when you fire up a quad, before you even trimmed it, you're going to fire it up. And when you push your throttle up, you'll notice that probably not all your blades are going to spin at the exact same rate. Okay, so this is definitely a good indication. Even if you get a little higher on the throttle, they're not going to spin at the exact same rate. So this is what's causing your drifting to go on, is they're not precisely balanced in their spin to create a proper air path or thrust path. Okay. Now, the thing is with quadcopters, even helicopters are no different. Okay, airplanes, they all need to be trimmed out in order to be stable in the air. Okay. So you have with quadcopters and helicopters a certain height that you have to attain in order to achieve an almost perfect hover, okay, where it's not really drifting that much. Very little to no drift is, well, we prefer no, but it's not going to happen, okay? But very little drift at all right? So you can get it precise within a certain plus or minus degree amount. Now, that requires a specific amount of height. Now, some quadcopters can do this at a lower height, same as helicopters. Some have to be at a much higher level. This one in particular needs to be at least 20 feet off the ground, okay? My WL Toys 212, it can get away with about 10 to 15 feet off the ground. It's just because the amount of thrust that they create and the wind forces that they create as part of that and how that all works together to stabilize the quad. So you really need to be able to do this outdoors because not that many of us actually have, 30-foot ceilings, okay? So you need at least 20 feet to do it properly, and as little amount of wind to no wind as possible to do it to get the best optimal trim performance. Now, your trim controls are changing motor speeds so that it stabilizes everything, right? So if you've got a motor that's out of whack or two motors out of whack, you're going to have some kind of a funky drift going on. You'll also notice too when you're trying to control your quadcopter, especially in like a steep movement of your stick, okay, your one motor or maybe two of your motors are going to be noticeably seeable in the air, that they're going really super slow, okay, and it's going to do some really crazy stuff to the quad that it shouldn't actually be doing with that stick movement. So you need to trim the quad out. So your motor speeds are affected. Now, not everything is built perfect. Not everything is built exactly the same. Not even one of these motors is exactly and precisely the same in balancing, in the amount of power each one of them is going to draw, etc., etc., okay? Especially brushed motors, but brushless motors are no different either, okay? Different tolerances, tensions during assembly, blah, blah, blah. Things get affected, okay? And from time to time, you do need to retrim your quadcopter or helicopter out again. And, when you get into a crash situation, if you bend a prop, you should actually replace it, okay? Any kind of nicks in your props or blades, you need to replace those blades because it throws things out of whack, okay? Now sometimes you can compensate for that little bit of damage if it's minor, but a lot of times you can't, so you need to replace the blade. So the basics are you need to trim it out to get a really good hover for best flight performance. And what it does, what the trims do, is they do affect the motor spin rate. Okay, and the more closer you can get it, the easier it's going to be for takeoff, the better it's going to be. Now, a quad that has like an auto takeoff, auto landing sequence like this one does, if the quad is not properly calibrated or trimmed out, you are going to have a very bad experience with that auto takeoff and auto landing. I have a video where I actually did the auto takeoff, auto landing portion demo on this quad. Now, my quad was trimmed out in a little bit higher wind situation too, so when I got into a really low wind situation, things got altered. Okay, so in different winds, you may have to retrim. Okay, and so I was definitely out of whack enough that this quad went really snaky. You can see that video, and I had also not read that portion of the manual. My bad. Okay, I'm no different than anybody else. But I hadn't read that portion of the manual where it said that you must pre-trim this quad out properly before attempting to use the auto takeoff, auto landing. Otherwise, you're going to have problems. And I found out the hard way, of course. Sometimes you find out the hard way. It's not necessary to find it the hard way, but it's human nature that sometimes we just get a little stupid and we just don't read everything in the manual like we should anyways. So, yeah, I'm going to start reading my manuals a lot more thoroughly nowadays because that was a little bit of a scary incident, and it did result in me injuring my thumb because I had to capture the quad in my hand and the blade hit my hand. Well, actually it hit my thumb, but it did shut the motors down because there was another safety feature in this that's not in every quad, and that's that when the blade comes in contact with an object that stalls it, it actually does shut this quad off. Okay, so that's actually a really good safety feature. It avoids some injuries, it avoids major damages, etc. So that's actually a really good feature to have. Not all quads have it. They should, but they don't. Okay, so anyways, that's the basics on how it's done and what the trim controls really do in real life. They do affect your motor spin rate so that you can balance it out and balance out those wind forces. And like I said, all quads are going to be different, but I do recommend at least with pretty much any quad, at least 20 feet. With anything that's like, say, you know, I don't know, about 6-inch wide and bigger, right? 20 feet is good. Little mini micro quads, usually about 4 or 5 feet off the ground. They're actually really good for being at that point because they're indoor flyers anyhow. So, you know, you can trim those out rather easily and at very low height pretty much anywhere indoors as long as you've got at least, well, I've got I think about 8-foot ceilings here, somewhere around there. So that's more than adequate space for those little mini micro jobbies. Same with your little micro helicopters. They're really good for that. And anyways, that covers it. Thanks for watching. Hope you liked the video. Feel free to comment, ask questions. I'll do the best I can as always to answer. Catch you later.